Welcome to the 24-25 fiscal year end close training. This is presented by the District Business and Advisory Team, DBAS. Today, we have the DBAS team that will be presenting this workshop. My name is Ann Red. I'm the Senior DBAS Advisor. We also have Lim Yen Lam, DBAS Advisor, Jamil Damaya, DBAS Advisor, Richard Aldebar, DBAS Advisor, Susan Ady, DBAS Director, and Brahma Kumar, DBAS Advisor. These are our objectives. For those of you who are seasoned, this training will be a refresher. We plan to achieve the following objectives. We want to gain an understanding of the year-end close and activities. We will review the year-end close calendar and timelines. We'll show you how to transfer data from QCC to the SACS web. We'll review some SACS reports, and we will also share best practices in report preparation. This slide is a sample of the year-end schedule training classes offered by the Technology and Data Services Division, TDSD. To register for the current classes, click on the registration link. To view pre-recorded trainings, click on the TDSD training links listed below. We strongly encourage you to attend all upcoming classes offered by TDSD. This slide is an outline of activities that take place during year-end close that we will cover. We plan to cover 10 modules. We'll cover Module 1, Background for Procedures, Module 2, the Fiscal Year 24-25, SCCOE Year-End Close Schedule, Module 3, Pre-Closing Activities, Module 4, Current Year Closing Activities, Module 5, Creating an Unaudited Actual Export File, Module 6, Downloading export files to the PC. Module 7, Importing files into the SACS web program. Module 8, Final Closing Activities, SACS reports. Module 9, Best Practices. And Module 10, Resources. So for Module 1, we'll review the background for procedures requirements, DBAS. So we will begin by reviewing the background for procedures for the 24-25 fiscal year and closing schedule. The basis for procedures are as follows. It's based on Education Code 41010, which requires the local education agencies to follow definitions, instructions, and procedures in the California School Accounting Manual. We follow the modified accrual basis of accounting, in which revenues are recognized when they become both measurable and available to finance expenditures of the current period. Most expenditures are recognized when the related liability is incurred. The school year end is the only time that revenue and expenditures are accrued. What's the purpose of year-end closing? Closing the books. Closing the books separates financial transactions by year and measures the results of operations of a fund for the year. Report financial activity for 1 year beginning July 1 through June 30th. And this report is known as the Unaudited Actuals. Unaudited Actuals. This report is approved by a district board and uploaded to the SACS web system by September the 15th. So for the year end, you want to confirm that all changes in fund balances are valid from one fiscal year to the next. And you want to validate all asset and liability accounts on the balance sheet. And you want to make sure to clear out all prior year balances on the balance sheet accounts. So for Module 2, we'll go over an example of the SCCOE year-end close schedule. So Usually we start in June. You can start sooner if you'd like, but these are the dates and times and activities that we have scheduled based on the controller's schedule. So you can take this and make this your own, customize it as you wish. The first deadline coming up is June 27th at 9 p.m. It's the deadline to enter AP batches, accounts payable batches for fiscal year 24-25. June 30th at 10 a.m. All 24-25 accounts payable warrants will be available for pickup. On June 30th at noon is the deadline to cancel accounts payable batches for fiscal year 24-25. And any deposits received after June 30th will be posted on July 1st in fiscal year 25-26, the next fiscal year. Also on June 30th at 5 p.m. is the cash receipt cutoff, and it's the last day for fiscal year 24-25 deposits to be made at J.P. Morgan Chase Bank by the bank closing time. For the month of July, we have the following cutoff periods. July 1st, you want to enter your AP batches for 25-26. This is the first day that you can enter them for the new fiscal year. The AP module will be available. On July 2nd at 10 a.m., fiscal year 25-26 accounts payable warrants will be available for pickup. Our offices will be closed on July 4th. On July 11th at 11 a.m. is the last cash transfers between SACS funds for fiscal year 24-25. And you're going to use the posting date of June 27th. After July 11th at 11:01 a.m., you want to set up due to, due from cash transfers with different resources. So this would be between the general fund and funds outside of the general fund. And it's also the last cash transfers for deposit allocations for fiscal year 24-25. On July 31st, the cash balance by fund, interest by fund, and cash reconciliations will be available to districts from the SCCOE. So, for example, after July 11th, you want to use a due to, due from, and we have the following 4 steps that you would take. And the example is a transfer between the general fund and the cafeteria fund. For example, the district transfers $500 from the general fund to the cafeteria fund. You want to follow the 4 steps and fiscal year 24-25, set up a due to, due from using object code 9310 in the general fund. And you want to credit the interfund transfer using object code 7XXX. Step 2, in the cafeteria fund, fiscal year 24-25, debit the interfund transfer using object code 8XXX and credit due to using object code 9610. In the following fiscal year, you want to reverse those entries for due to, due from. In the general fund, you want to credit object code 9310. And in the cafeteria fund, you want to debit your due to, due from, your due to account object code 9610. So this will zero out the 9310 object codes, and it will also zero out the 9610 object codes. Next is the August deadlines. On August the 8th at 9 p.m. will be the last day that SCCOE will post transactions to fiscal year 24-25. Exceptions after this date will be clearly communicated to district fiscal directors and CBOs. On August the 8th at 5 p.m., the SCCOE will distribute the bond interest and redemption information, or BINR, to districts contingent upon receipt from the County Controller's Office. The September deadlines are as follows. On September the 1st, our offices will be closed in honor of Labor Day. On September the 9th at 9 p.m. will be the last district entries for fiscal year 24-25, and those will be dated June 30th. On September the 15th at 5 p.m., the 24-25 unaudited actuals financial reports will be uploaded to the SACS web system, and also the GAN limit resolution is due to the SCCOE. On September the 30th at 5 p.m., fiscal year 24-25 ending balances will be rolled into the fiscal year 25-26 beginning balances. Okay, now we'll move on to Module 3, pre-closing activities, and Yin will review this with you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dian Lam. I will be talking about Module 3, pre-closing activity. Since year-end closing is approaching, let's review prior year-end balance to ensure it matches current year beginning balance, and we can use beginning balance entry report as a tool. Then we want to gather funding schedule from the California Department of Education, CDE, as a backup to help with the reconciliation process of revenue. And we can use apportionment and categorical funding schedule or any schedule that is helpful from CDE. Then we want to review all revenue to ensure that they were classified correctly and are in line with budgeted revenue. Then we want to review all expenditure to ensure they don't exceed current anticipated revenue. Also make sure all expenditure comply with the program requirement. Then we want to look at object 6000 with function 8500 and ensure that it's a capital outlay expenditure. Then we want to clean up coding errors such as, but not limited to, incorrect resource object function. And we can use the validation table as a tool. Next, we want to review all resource to ensure to close out all obsoleted resources and replace them with current resource. The latest master resource list as of November 2024 is on the CDE website. Next thing we want to do is confirm that audit finding for 23-24 have been reviewed, audit adjustment has been made, and plan of correction is in place. And we can see the audit finding on audit report 2023-24. Then we want to analyze all prior year transactions, looking at the balance sheet account for object 92XX account receivable, 95XX account payable, 9330 prepaid expenditure, 9310 due from other fund, 9610 due to other fund, 9650 unearned revenue, 99XX non-operating account suspend clearing account needs to be cleared out. Then we're going to deal with intra-fund transfer. We'll be looking at object 9310 due from other fund, net object 9610 due to other fund, and we want to confirm that temporary intra-fund borrow has been prepaid in the same fiscal year, unless borrow occur within the final 120 calendar day of the fiscal year, according to Ed Code 42603. And we also want to make sure no more than 75% of the maximum of money held in any fund during the current fiscal year may be transferred. In order to have a successful pre-closing activity, we also need to set up a year-end closing calendar by using state and district business and advisory service deadline. See below, for example. That ends our pre-closing activity. Thank you.
Module 4, Current Year Closing Activities. Activities that are normal year-end transactions. The current year is like this cycle. First, you want to review your GL. This was mentioned in the previous slides. The cash should be positive in all funds. If not, then run a detailed report to find out what happened and then make the correction. Then you want to confirm your AR and AP, which was also mentioned earlier. Then you want to create your SACS report. SACS export file 2025. Then you want to import your file into SACS Web. Then you can start completing your SACS reports, and then you can run your technical review checks, or TRCs, and clear all fatal errors and explain your warnings. Ideally, this is good to run early on as you can detect errors and correct it. Then you can run another GL to see that all your entries are recorded. This is basically a cycle which you repeat until all errors are cleared and you can have a final official file. The following are some of the items you want to look at. Audit adjustments. You want to see if you have any, and if you do, you want to make sure those are booked as soon as they become known. Of course, as mentioned earlier, you look at your accounts receivable. Prepare and post the adjusting entries for the revenue related to services performed or use of facilities provided before June the 30th. Determine if an AR has been set up for all outstanding billings or invoices. Accounts payable. Accrue items such as payroll, items received, or services rendered by June the 30th. Cash. Make sure cash reconciliations are prepared for all cash accounts as of June the 30th. Prepare entries to adjust the cash accounts in the books if not correct. If you are closing any funds, you want to make sure you have a board resolution and then you can submit it to your advisory team. Generally, if you have any coding errors, you want to make sure you classify it to the correct account string. Some other current year closing activities are due to, due from. Make sure your current year due to and due from are accurate. Generally, 9310 should always have a positive balance and 9610 should have a negative balance. GL review. In general, look at all the items mentioned on the previous slide, but also in particular the suspense accounts, 99XX. Make sure the suspense accounts have been analyzed and addressed. Indirect cost. Make sure these are looked at and have been calculated and recorded. Inventory. Make sure this is done. Verify that your GL matches physical inventory. Prepaid expenditures. Basically, you want to verify if you are paying in advance for services that affect multiple years and book a prepaid expense. Transfers in and out. These should always equal. Fourth quarter lottery accrual. Districts are responsible for accruing the fourth quarter lottery accounts receivable. AR 92XX is the debit and credit is 8560. Distinguish restricted and unrestricted portions. Lottery funding is based on the annual ADA for the current year. However, since annual ADA is not available until after the fiscal year ends, lottery funding is initially allocated using the prior year's annual ADA and adjusted in the subsequent fiscal year. Education Protection Account, EPA. Fourth quarter apportionment. Districts will post the fourth quarter apportionment. Payment is expected on or around August the 15th, 2025. DBAS will post third quarter lottery apportionments on or about July 11th, 2025. Fourth quarter interest accrual. DBAS will post the fourth quarter interest accounts receivable or payable by July the 31st, 2025. Special education final apportionments. Adjustments and accruals. DBAS will post these transactions. During August, the SELPA administrative units will prepare the fiscal year's final adjustment entries for special education, state aid, and SCCOE excess property tax transfers, Object 8097. At that time, the SELPA administrators also will instruct districts on the preparation of fiscal year 2024 to 25 accruals related to federal funds. Grants and entitlements. This is relevant when preparing the CAT form. The preparer will need to know the difference between a grant and a apportionment. A grant is a contribution, either in money or material goods, made by one governmental entity to another. Grants may be for specific or general purposes. They are an apportionment based on specific qualifications or formula defined in statute. For some other activities, you want to review programs for compliance. Make sure there is a 15% administrative cost limit for federal programs that you don't go over this. Verify programs exempt from indirect costs have not been charged. You want to make sure you confirm maximum allowable indirect is not exceeded. Book indirect costs for programs that allow these charges, and you want to make sure that transfers of indirect costs must net to zero for all funds and by function for inter-program Object 731X and interfund Object 7350. Then you want to make sure that contributions from unrestricted revenues Object 8980 must net to zero by fund. Transfers of restricted balances, Object 8997, must net to zero. There are two types of categorical programs: programs subject to deferred revenue and programs subject to restricted ending balance. This is something you will need to know when preparing the CAT form. The CAT form will help in determining carryover, accounts payable, accounts receivable, deferred revenue, and/or restricted ending balance at the end of the fiscal year for all categorical programs. If you need to know more information on whether a particular program is restricted or unrestricted, is allowable to have an ending balance or unearned revenue, or if indirect costs are allowable, you can go to the following website below and go to the SACS query and input the resource number, and you will get the following information on the next slide. This is the form that will come up and show all the details of the particular resource number. It will show whether it is unearned or has an ending fund balance, as well as if indirect costs are allowable. The next topic will be covered by Rich, creating an unaudited actual export file.
Hello, my name is Rich Aldover, and I will be covering Module 5, creating an unaudited actual export file in QCC, and Module 6, downloading the export file to your computer. From the main QCC menu tree, open Job menu. In Job menu, select Grid View and search for SACS Actual to bring up the SACS Actual export job, and double-click on SACS Actual export file. On the request screen, give the export file a title. In this example, we named it Unaudited Actuals File SACS. The file name must be 5 alphanumeric characters. I called this file name RA26A, using my initials, the fiscal year, and A for actuals. This file name is how you will identify the file in the download tool. The LEA ID is automatically filled with my county district numbers. Set the budget fiscal year to 26 to report 25-26 budget data and 24-25 actuals. Source of budget data can be a budget model, working, revised, or approved budget. Source of actuals data can be a budget model, working, revised, or approved budget. Keep the Use Chart of Accounts Roll-up Values box checked for exporting to SACS. After all your settings are filled, you can save a preset to quickly reload these settings, either to rerun the report again or reference it for next year. Finally, click the Shazam, the battery with a lightning bolt icon at the top, to run the export. Next, I'll cover Module 6, downloading the export file to your PC. In order to download the export file to a PC, you're first going to want to open the Upload Download Files QSSXFR program from the main menu tree. From the QSSXFR file transfer dialog, make sure Transfer Rule 01 is set, then click on the 3 dots to the right of Account. This will bring up another window that shows groupings of transfer files saved by QCC in your environment. Select eSACS on the group on the left-hand side, and in the Filter File Names box, type in the file name used when we were creating the export file. In my case, it was E90 RA26A. Select the file in Select File window, then click on the green circle to load it. With the file name now loaded on the server file name area, click on the 3 dots to the far right of Local File Name. This will bring up a dialog to save it to your computer. For this file, I create a new folder on my desktop named SACS file. Give the file a name. I used SACS 2425 actuals, then click on Open. The file name and file path will now be populated under the File Settings dialog. Click on the icon with the two papers in the upper left corner to save the file. You'll get a dialog now saying that the file transfer was complete. You can now preview the file data directly from the File Data tab in the File Transfer window and can access the saved file from a folder that you saved it to on your desktop. Now I will pass it over to Susan, who will be covering importing the file into the SACS web program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard. That was really helpful. Now that you guys know how to create an export file for your unaudited actuals in QCC, we're going to show you how to take that file and import it into the SACS web program. This presentation assumes that you're already familiar with the SACS web system. If you need more training than we are providing in this presentation, please reach out to your DBAS advisor. We'll make sure that you get the training that you need in order to complete your unaudited actuals. In my section of the presentation right here, we're going to be talking about importing your DAT file into the web. You're going to show you how to overwrite that file as necessary if you need to go back to QCC and make changes. And then we'll talk about which forms are required for you to submit to your DBAS advisor with your unaudited actuals submission. And we'll take a brief look on how to get to the charter school alternative form. So starting out in SACS Web, you're going to log into the web, and then you're going to check the fiscal year. This is the first thing you must do to make sure you're in the right reporting year. So this sample has a fiscal year 23-24, but you can see there's a caret right next to it. You would click on that caret to make sure that you get to the reporting period for the unaudited actuals for this year. So that would be 24-25. And then you would click on the Import tab from the blue menu bar, and you would select Single Import. You have the ability to do a multiple import or a single import, but for our purposes, we're only going to be looking at doing a single import. We're only going to bring one file in at a time. And that file has to have the same reporting period, fiscal year, county and district numbers that you are logged into your SACS web system to use in order for you to import that file. Okay. So once you get to this tab and you've clicked on import, this window here will show up, and you're going to make sure that you select either official or other. For most purposes at this point in time, you would probably be selecting the other. You would give your data set a name, then you would select the reporting period, and you would select the format, and then you would select the file. From that, once you've hit that, a drop-down menu will come down, and you will see your own desktop or download file, and you would select the file that you just created, and you would then bring it in over here, and then you would hit upload. So let's just do a quick demonstration of that. If you don't mind, we'll do this really quickly. I'll go ahead and log into SACS. I'll bring my window over here. Okay. For this purposes, because we haven't done the unaudited actuals yet, and SACS does not have the unaudited actuals format available for the 24-25 year, as we're recording this in May, I'm going to go ahead and use a file from the year 23-24. But again, for your purposes for this year, you would click on this caret, and you would make sure you hit the 24-25 year. But for right now, we're going to leave it in 23-24. I'm going to go to my dashboard. And I'm going to import a single import file. I'm going to leave it on other. I'm going to go ahead and give it a name. I'm going to call it UA. I'm going to see the reporting period here is going to be for unaudited actuals. And the format would either be SACS or Charter Alternative. So for our purposes, it would be SACS. And then I'll hit Select File. And then that file that you created earlier will show up here, either on your desktop or your Documents folder or your Downloads folder or wherever you put it. Mine is right here. I would click on that. and I would say open, and the file would be there. Then I would go ahead and hit upload, and the file would be uploaded. So if I go to my dashboard, I now have the file there. So that's how you bring your file in to SACS. Okay, then once you've got your file imported, you can begin to work on all your forms. So again, back to your dashboard, and you would see your file. You would click on the blue numbers right there. And you would have the ability to click on all your forms and get started on it. Now, if you need to go back to QCC and make changes in your financial information, and then you want to bring your file back into SACS, you would want to use the overwrite dataset feature. You would not want to re-import because then you would have two files in SACS. So what you would want to do is import from if you go to your dashboard, you would click on the file. You would click on import from your left navigation tab, not this import, this import. You would click on here, and then it would say you have to lock your submission in order to do that. So you would click on your lock button, right? And then you would select your file. Again, supposedly you've created a new file because you've gone through the whole process in QCC. You've created a new file. Your new file would be here. You would select on your file. You would open it and upload it, and it would be uploaded on top of your old file in the SACS web system. And that saves you from having to rewrite all of your other supplemental forms you may have started to do. So it's a time-saving feature to do that. It's just overwriting the data that's in there. It doesn't delete any of your supplemental forms that you've already begun. Okay, so this is just walking you through those steps. Select your file, you make sure that your submission is locked, and then you go through and you upload. All right, SACS report system. Here we go. Now that these are the forms that you will need to make sure that you submit along with your unaudited actuals file. All of these forms here are all the SACS forms that are required. We also ask for your board presentation and any narratives you have associated with it, your stirs on behalf calculations, your CIMA and CIBA. These are required to be submitted to the SELPA, but they should also be part of your submission to us. Fund aid if you have an associated student body, bank statement, and reconciliation. Then anything else that would be applicable, your audit reports for any other reports for that are talking about the financial condition of your district. Any other relevant district information, if you're going through collective bargaining, or if you've got new actuarial reports or new debt instruments, or perhaps you have an upcoming parcel tax or retro pay as part of your collective bargaining. All of these things should be submitted to us as well, along with your SACS forms. This is the recommended sequence for completing the reporting process in the SACS web system. You can enter your forms, you can work in your forms in any order that you would like to, but this is the sequence that will produce the fewest amount of TRCs. So go ahead and start with your import user data input. You work on your Form A, you work on the CATs. You just go through this order here onto the next page, continues here with other forms that you can complete in that particular order. And that would help you. So you want to make sure that you're running your TRCs. And when you're running your TRCs, you want to make sure that you're running all 4 different versions, all 4 modules of those TRCs, because you don't want to just check for one. If there's an error in any of them, that would cause you to not have an official file. So you need to make sure that all of your TRCs are clear. You kind of want to do that early on. You don't want to wait until September to check your TRCs when you're running out of time to do anything in QCC. So check your TRCs. I would do it first. I would do it right after I've imported my file to find out where my issues are right away. And then I would do it after every supplemental form that I complete. I'd run my TRCs just to make sure that I don't have a lot of errors hanging out there. Where are all those forms in the SACS web system? So over here on the left navigation tab, you would see funds. You would click on that caret there, and that would bring you all your fund forms. Then all of your supplemental forms are right here under the supplementals tab. You would click on that caret, and you would find them all listed, and you can work on them by clicking on them right here in the left navigation tab. Here is a link to the SACS financial webpage. You can click on that for more information. There are detailed descriptions and line-by-line instructions for each SACS form in the SACS web system user guide, which can be accessed and downloaded from that webpage right here. Or if you click on the question mark from the SACS web system. So let me show you where that would be. So if you're over here in the SACS web system, you're on your dashboard, you see a question mark, you click on that question mark, and then you get right to the SACS user manual, and you can click on dataset submissions, dependencies, alternative form. This one here is quite useful, especially if you go to Appendix E. That's going to show you the dependent forms if you ever forget which forms are dependent, because we all know that TRC at the very end, when you're all done with your SACS, you're getting a TRC because you have dependent form issues. This would show you which forms need to be opened first in order to clear that TRC. It's a very helpful index. Okay, and then moving on to our next slide. Again, this is just a version of how to get to that SACS user guide. I just showed you that live, but here it is in the documentation for you for your own review. We do recommend that you run your SEMA and SEMB forms early. They aren't due to your self-administrator until September. But if you need to go back to QCC and move things around in order to meet your MOEs, please make sure you give yourself time to do that. Remember, the cutoff to make entries in QCC is September 9th. So you definitely want to make sure that your SEMA and SEMB forms are at least mostly complete before that deadline. And you don't have to go back to QCC and make any entries to complete those. And again, here's that form dependencies. As we all have, I'm sure we've all suffered that TRC, a little bit of frustration when you're all done. You got to go back and open and close and save everything. This is the order that you have to do that in. And then once you've completed all your SACS forms, again, run your TRCs. Make sure all fatal errors have been cleared. If you have to write an explanation, please make sure that the explanation that you are writing for any error in your TRCs is applicable to that particular error. Please make sure that it makes sense. All of these documents now are viewable by the public online. You want to make sure that you've fixed any spelling errors and that you've addressed whatever issue the warning error with the W has identified, and that you're addressing that particular error. Okay, and then please only promote official files to the COE. You have to have all your TRCs cleared or explained in order to have an official file. And then the charter school alternative form, as of last year, districts had to go into SACS and use the alternative form through SACS, or actually use a SACS form to do their unaudited actuals. They are no longer able to do just an Excel spreadsheet. So if you are a charter school authorizer, please make sure that you're working with your charter schools to make sure that they are doing the alternative form or the actual SACS form. That's all I have for you for right now. I'm going to turn it over to Rama, who's going to walk you through best practices.
Module 9. We touch on some best practices here to follow while closing the books. It's a good idea to run QCC reports after a set of corrections have been made in the accounting system to make sure that all intended changes were captured correctly. It's also a good idea to run TRC reports after an import into SACS has been made to make sure data are correct and to enable to clear errors, if any. Fund 01 in SACS has to match the final QCC extract. A good idea to ensure that beginning balances in the current year match ending balances in the prior year. Do not wait for closing time to clear the 9,000s, but do them throughout the year. Take the time to look at current year revenues and expenditures and adjust estimated actuals to be as close to reality as possible. This will ensure that differences between estimated actuals and unaudited actuals, if any, are as small as possible. This also ensures transparency and a high level of confidence in the budget. Also make sure CAT forms prepared tied to the spreadsheets that are being maintained for various programs at the district.
Thank you, Roma. Lastly, for Module 10, we are going to review additional resources to assist with fiscal year end close. Each of these resources are clickable links from the digital copy of this presentation that is provided. Common UA reporting issues, obsoleted resource codes, SACS valid codes and combinations, the CDE master resource list as of March 2024, the SACS financial webpage, SACS web user guide, the link to the California Department of Education main website, and the California School Accounting Manual, CSAM. Thank you for attending. This concludes our presentation.